Budget 2022 has been announced, has been debated extensively. But what exactly went into making this budget, the thought process, and we've got the people who have played an important role and its impact on their particular departments. I have the chairman of CBDT, Mr. J.B. Mahapatra, the Central Board of Direct Taxes. Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahapatra, for joining us. And the chairman of the Central Board of Indirect Tax and Customs, Mr. Vivek Johri. Thank you very much for joining us on this show. Mr. Mahapatra, we'll begin with you first. It was surprising what was always considered the big highlight of any budget, that is any change or implication or no change of direct taxes, was not even mentioned. What is the reason why this happened?
No, actually we are trying to prepare the resources of the nation in a manner in which the uncertain times, if they come in the future, it can be met, right? Resource generation was one of the key points. Apart from that, the compliance requirements to be eased out for the taxpayers. There are a lot of procedural changes which have been made, which have not been mentioned anywhere, but only when you go through the finance bill, then you will understand the import of those changes. Those are systemic procedural changes having great impact. These are as big as a reform in any manner. So, like the first thing which the Honorable FM told about the updated tax return, this is an instance in which the department realizes that it has got confidence in its own information and it has got confidence also in the taxpayers.
Correct.
That the taxpayer can make mistakes.
Correct.
Right? It can make mistakes.
And he must be allowed to correct.
Absolutely. We're giving them 2 years time, 2 years from the relevant year, to come back and file the return and pay the taxes. This door was closed for the taxpayer for the as long as I have been aware of the income tax. Right? Now that door has opened.
Would you call this as some sort of an amnesty, or is this just a new system which has been created and embedded now?
No, the department's information gathering, information compilation, information processing systems, now we are ready that we have the information, we have the quality information, and we can sift the grain from the chaff, and we can make people understand the import of the quality of the data which we're having. So that confidence is giving us confidence, reposing confidence in the taxpayers.
But then, this is one provision.
Yes.
The other provision is where people were actually looking for a benefit or a reduction in any form of income tax. Even that has not happened. See, that would have been great relief. Like, look at the import from the people who many are not getting their increments. Some of them, working at lesser salaries. One was really hoping that there will be perhaps some sort of a tax slab revision which will help them. Do you think that in that sense it's an opportunity?
Exactly. Let me segregate for you the 4 quadrants in which you work on. Out of average 7 crores of tax returns which are filed every year, 92% are in the quadrant of 0 to 10 lakhs. Okay. Around 6.7 to 7.9% are in the quadrant of 10 lakhs to 50 lakhs, right? And just about 0.6 to 0.7%, that is around 50 lakhs, are between 50 lakhs to 5 crores. And beyond 5 crores, there are only 30,000 taxpayers, right? So the majority of the taxpayers are falling in the first quadrant.
Okay.
Our aim is not to increase the tax base mindlessly. We want people to migrate from one quadrant to a higher quadrant, right?
Okay.
So the tax relief, if it has not come this year, there will be a good time in future in which it can come.
Okay. Mr. Johri, I want to come to you now. Yours is a very important division of the arm of the government, and there are 2 or 3 crucial things that have happened. Number one, and the finance minister mentioned this also, this remarkable jump in the GST, which has happened today, 1,40,000 crores, if I'm not wrong, in the month of January. Now this GST is something which in this 2-year period, at the advent of the lockdown, saw its lowest of 28,000 crores and now has seen its highest in a matter of 2 years. Do you think that you've been able to, or have you been dislodged from the targets that you had for GST, or are you well on your path to recovery of what was originally envisioned?
I think we're well on the path to recovery, and the measures we've taken over the last year and a half, starting November 2020, are now bearing fruit because all the dots are now connecting. There are different parts of the strategy that we embarked on. So one of the things that we started out with was a drive, a very concerted campaign launched both by the state and the central government against fake dealers and fake ITC that started in November. It's been extremely successful in reining them in, but that was only one part of the strategy. What happened alongside Sanket is that we've really simplified the return filing process. We've deployed technology. It was already an IT-built, sort of IT-based platform. But we've simplified return filing in as much as, there are e-invoices which a taxpayer needs to generate. Those e-invoices go and populate your returns, and your outward supply return then goes to populate the input tax credit of the recipient's return. So it's all linked together. And we provided an amnesty and reduced the late filing fee for taxpayers because it used to be very high. And particularly during the pandemic, small taxpayers were complaining that in fact the late filing fee was far in excess of their liability.
Correct.
We corrected all of that. And over a period of time, there's been a remarkable improvement in compliance, particularly in tax return filing. So we are up from about 45% return filing about 2 years ago to almost 90% now. So that is the order of increase in return filing and therefore compliance. And that is what has sort of yielded results in terms of revenue.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Johri, the other aspect is that now the GST is, you say, well on its path to recovery or has course corrected. What else needs to be done with the goods and services tax? New slabs, revision of slabs. I know there is a mechanism in place, but is that thought process on? And of course the most contentious, having fuel in GST.
Yes.
Because the finance minister mentioned a 2% excise, 2 rupees excise duty increase on unblended fuel.
That's right. That's right.
Now, does this mean that the Aam Aadmi has to bear the brunt? It's very convenient for companies to pass it on to the Aam Aadmi.
That's right. But we also want them to transition to, greater use of green fuels in the economy. And so
that's the reason why this has happened?
Yes,
oh,
precisely. The other thing which needs to happen in GST, and you're aware the mechanism is already in place, is the rate rationalization which everybody has been waiting for. And to collapse the rate structure into 3 rates, the experts would, have been saying for a while that a 3-rate structure is ideal. We need to move into that. There's a GOM which is looking into it, and hopefully they will come out with their recommendation soon. So,
all right. It's a pity that this time around you guys didn't get to have that halwa, which is usually a part of the ceremony. No, no more there. Mr. Mahapatra, sorry, you were saying.
One of the prices you pay for dealing with Corona.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahapatra and Mr. Johri.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce 2 very eminent guests who are joining me right now. Finance Secretary, Mr. T.V. Somanathan, as well as DIPAM, which is the Department of Industrial Policy and Asset Management, Secretary Tuhin Kanta Pandey. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Somanathan, I want to begin with you first. I'm sure you must have heard a lot of, you must have received a lot of bouquets and brickbats, which is usually the case as far as all budgets are concerned. What, according to you, is the key highlight of this budget?
I think the highlight is an attempt to boost growth and employment through productive capital investment, because we are very conscious of the need to create jobs, and we think that the jobs that we create should be real gainful employment jobs and not necessarily palliative jobs. So
could you define that for us? What is a palliative job?
Narega is a palliative. It's not a permanent job. It's a job that you get when you can't get anything else. So that's a fallback. That's a safety net. But real jobs are gainful employment.
Is that the reason why the Narega budget has gone down?
The Narendra
in the
budget
estimate.
has not gone down. To be very precise, it is the same as it was last year in the budget. It is
But
constant.
but the revised estimate was more.
Correct. Narendra is a demand-based scheme, and in each of the past 2 financial years, the revised estimates have been substantially higher than the budget.
Which means it can be the same
Of
this
course,
time also.
Certainly.
Okay.
If the circumstances are the same and the demand is the same.
Okay.
But circumstances do change. Circumstances in 2021 were much worse than in 21-22, and that's reflected in the demand. Now, if the circumstances are better, and if our other job creation schemes, for example, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, where we've given a 27% increase in the budget estimates. Now, if those jobs mean that there's less demand for Narega, then that's a different story. So we've kept it at a same level as it was last year, but yes, if the necessity arises, it will be stepped up, as it was in the last 2
The
years.
capital expenditure, a lot has been spoken about the manner in which it has been increased. What's the idea behind it?
The idea, as I said right at the beginning, the idea is that the country needs a step up in investment. Investment is the harbinger of growth. Without investment, the productivity of investment is an important variable, but investment is an absolutely essential function.
So you feel that will start a cycle, there will
That's
be
right.
more jobs?
More jobs, more activity, which would probably create the demand conditions for the private sector to commence an investment cycle of its
Okay.
own. So private sector investment has not been very high.
Okay.
And I think this is the time for the government to step in, prime the pump, and then make sure that private investment crowds in, as they
What's
say.
the horizon that you are looking for these things to? I'm sure this cannot be done in just 1 year.
No, certainly not. But this is the second consecutive year that we've had a big increase in public capital investment. And hopefully we are on the cusp of a recovery of private investment. There are some signs, there are incipient signs of recovery in private investment intentions. And if those incipient signs become actuality, then perhaps we will be in a position where the private sector will begin pulling its weight in raising
Many industry heavyweights seem to lament at the fact that there was not much for the MSME sector, a sector that was bleeding.
I'm not sure that it's been fully understood. There's one very important announcement for the MSME sector, which is 2 lakh crores of new collateral-free guaranteed loans. It was one sentence in the budget speech, but a very important one. And that is not the ECLGS. It is not for pandemic-affected enterprises. It's for existing and new enterprises who are doing business. It's to help them get bank credit.
But Mr. Somanathan, what is the period of the loan? Because that is also a contentious bit, whether it is for a year or 10-year period. There was a demand that you have a loan given to us over a greater period. Because see, suppose if I take a loan today, I'm only narrating what we have learned from the field. You take a loan today, you build a capacity, but you don't sell your product immediately because supply chains are disturbed, and then you have a loan to repay. So if you have a 10-year window, then perhaps you can absorb.
I think it's an interesting point that you make. The terms on which the CGT MSE, the one that I was referring
Correct.
to, the terms on which it is going to be revamped are being crafted. It's not yet a cooked or a ready deal.
Okay.
We are committed to 2 lakh crore of extra credit. We are committed to making the necessary fiscal investment in the corpus of the trust and to making the necessary changes in the operation of the scheme. And this is a suggestion that certainly we should look at the tenor and make sure that it is something that is useful to the recipient, but it also needs to be prudent for the bank.
Sure.
So we have to balance those two
Okay,
factors.
okay. I'll come back to you. There are a couple of more questions. Mr. Pandey, now yours is a department which has been in the news and also this morning when disinvestment was being debated on the channel. There were many experts who said that a department which had a target of 1.75 lakh crore rupees for 21-22, achieving only 0.14 lakh crore, which is a shortfall of 92%. In a private sector, if someone fails to meet a target by this much, heads will start to roll, right? I am not building a case, for heads to roll in your department, but the point is, do you think that this is a major cause of worry at a time when the government is talking about a national monetization pipeline, when we are talking about disinvestment? You've got a fantastic deal that has happened, Air India, big deal spoken about. It only adds about 15,000 crores. The real big target has still not been met. Is this a cause of worry?
Now, first, I think we need to understand the context of the disinvestment. Disinvestment as a policy, there are 2 goals. If we always link it with the fiscal, then we are going to go for easy pickings. We have gone for actually more difficult things, but more sustainable and more important things for the economy. And I'll give you two examples. The Air India disinvestment coming after 20 years, as you know. Now it cleans up the government balance sheet because all the contingent liabilities which were resting on the government thing have been cleaned up. It cleans up the company because all of the company which is going downhill, and you can't afford to have your major national carrier going downhill day after day. You can't have a airline carrier which will, spur into a 5 trillion economy. You should have, now all of that has to be, it's not a question of how much you get receipt in your budget in accounting terms. Now we have got 18,000 crore, but 2,700 crore is the consideration amount for a company, for its shares, where minus 35,000 crore was a net worth. And this was accumulated losses over the last 10-15 years. In 10 years alone, we have 1.10 lakh crores of bonds and guarantees pumped in. So how do you look at Air India disinvestment? In terms of 2,700 crore number, or the opportunity cost saved, or the employment potential generated or going to be generated? The second example of NINL, where the GOI equity is not there, but we were catalyst in doing this disinvestment, which can lead to an investment of 30 to 50,000 crores of private capital investment in Odisha, in a backward region, where you can have 1 million tons of capacity potentially going up to 5 million tons of capacity, and this company was closed for 2 years. No jobs for the workers. So I would say that, we are also having a change of tack, is not really looking at disinvestment as a plug number, but real term privatization.
No, but then Mr. Pandey, then our expectation of disinvestment year after year in terms of targets that we have set must also match this reality that you're talking about. But because when you look at 1.75 lakh crores as a target, and then when you look at the reality of what has been achieved, there is a huge difference, 92% difference.
No, the reality will also change, you see. For example, an LIC IPO is being planned. The reality will change. Now, in order to plan one of the world's country's largest IPO and one of the world's largest, in a pandemic year when you had 2 waves, I think one can imagine, how much of preparation is needed. And if we are able to pull it off.
Do you have an idea of by when this will be done? Because that's the obvious next question.
Yes.
Like what next? What are you planning?
We are planning to do it in March.
March of this year. Okay. And anything else that you would like to share as far as the divestment plans are concerned?
No,
Which company?
Our plans are on the table. We have expression of interest which are going to be issued. For example, IDBI Bank. We have an expression of interest which have just been issued, for example, HLL Life Care and this, which was demerged as first the demerger took place. We have also a couple of BEML and SCI where the advanced stage of where the financial bids are expected in a month or 2. So, and we have some more companies which will actually be brought to disinvestment table as an announcement. The whole M&A process is a little long because you require a competitive bidding process from the interested bidders to come in and pick up. So it's not something which is with one hand clap. You need 2 hands to clap, and fortunately we were able to demonstrate that privatization can work. Actual transfer of management control can happen, which is what will really reform the economy. If you were to say that going from Somanathan's point of view is that capex to be crowding in. How do you crowd in? I would say NINL has been crowded in. Maybe in next 2-3 years of so much of capex will crowd into NINL, private investment. So that is how, we are looking at disinvestment.
Realistically speaking, by March 2023, what is this number that you are looking at? Given, of course, the big COVID variable.
No, I would say that, we have a new PSC policy which has been on the table, which has been announced in February 2021. And it lays down a broad roadmap. It's a policy. And we are following it one by one. Basically, I think the implementation is the key. And in order to do a transaction, we have to face myriads of challenges. Because it's a public assets under this, and we have court challenges. We have, I think Air India, we face all kinds of challenges, including international courts coming in and linking unfairly AI with Devas. So all of that has been, we met and concluded the deal. So that's, I think, important. That is why I think we are going away from the era of very tall targets.
Yeah.
Rather, we will moving into implementation.
Yeah. So the big headline is that by March there will be an LIC IPO, and that's what people should look forward to. Okay, let's see. It's very interesting because lots of comments were made, particularly with respect to disinvestment, that the targets are ambitious and the government is unable to achieve them, perhaps because it's a very difficult exercise and actually the government does not want to do it. I'm just quoting some of the economists who had appeared on our channel this morning. So how would you
the
respond?
government really intends to do it, and it is doing it, and it is demonstrated, and it will demonstrate.
And you will achieve the monetization pipeline goals.
Now we have to again understood in accounting terms, because you always pick up this number from accounting terms. Now when you say asset monetization pipeline, nothing comes to the government. It is actually a way of triggering capex. Your power grid goes for an InvIT, raises money up front, and then puts it money to build up new power lines. This is how the national infrastructure pipeline will be financed, partly about 6 lakhs crores over the next 5 years through the monetization plan. But don't expect that number to be shown, seen in the budget thing.
Okay.
So I think it's very important when you pick up an accounting term, you should understand that so many transactions which have happened also on asset monetization side will not reflect in a equivalent receipts in the budget.
Okay, okay. So it will look as if there is a huge difference, whereas there will really not be. That's what you're saying.
I think we have probably failed to educate.
Well, it's complicated. If you look at it in pure numbers, and that's what everybody will look at.
And that is why we have now giving you a straightaway reasonable numbers, because so much will not actually come in here.
So do you think the government is too ambitious when it gives these numbers? 6 lakh crore rupees will raise this much.
No.
We
Again,
should
I'm
not go
telling
for
you
these big bang numbers.
I'm telling you the 6 lakh crore is a number not coming back to the government, but being put into
Pumped
the
into the
economy in
government.
capex.
Okay, fair enough.
It's PSU back to PSU.
Okay.
Back to PSU,
highways which
sure.
are put on toll operate and transfer. Money comes back to NHAI to build more roads, but
Okay.
it doesn't come into the government budget.
Sure.
And today we are
like
talking of
NINL.
government budget, government's balance sheet, not the PSU balance sheet.
Okay.
So the NINL transaction that he's talking about, the owner is MMTC, which is a PSU and an Orissa government PSU.
Sure.
They'll get this money.
Sure.
They can then invest it in something.
Mr. Somanathan, my final question, and this is, politically it became very sensitive with, I'm not going to ask you a political question, but we'll take a cue and maybe get a reply from you, that there's nothing in it for the middle class. That the middle class wanted to hear the words income tax, right? In fact, they were deprived of even the mention of income tax slabs in this budget. What's in it for the middle class? You see, there are people who have lost jobs, who are working on pay cuts or working on no increments. So their real hope was that there will be some income tax rebate.
There is no income tax rebate. There's no income tax increase either. You know that on your channel I've heard references to Piketty and to the kind of tax increases that are needed if we are to, take this economy forward. So there's neither an increase nor a decrease. It is stability in tax rates, which is good or bad depending on how you view it. But it's also a good thing to have stability often. But for the middle class, there are no tax cuts. But if we are able to get this economy back on a steady growth path, then people will see salary increases, people will see more secure employment, and people will see new jobs. And that is helpful to the middle class. The middle class has also faced job cuts, salary cuts, many difficulties. Taxes are only one element in that total. Now, taxes are also necessary for us to be able to fund things like the Gram Sadak Yojana, which is increased by 27%, to be able to fund any increases in various subsidies that are essential, including fertilizer, food, etc.
No, but then that subsidy also went down. If you compare it
That's
to
because of arrears. See, the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, by the way, fertilizer subsidy has not gone down. It's doubled.
No, with the revised estimate, if you
It's
take a
double
look
the
at
budget estimate. It's 1,40,000 crores for fertilizer against an estimate of I think 78 or 79,000 crores, almost double. And next year it's 1,05,000 crores. Depending on commodity prices, it may go up. So that's we have held prices constant. Farmers have not paid 1 rupee extra for fertilizer, despite huge fluctuations in global prices. So that's a little beyond our control.
Sure.
Those are force majeure events. We'll have to react to them.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to say is, for the middle class, if growth can be restarted, if India gets back
to 8, 8.5, 9% growth. That is the best thing that can happen for the middle class. And on average, that will be better than a marginal, saving of a few rupees. Of taxes.
How comfortable were you about the fact that this is a post-vaccination budget for you? Because when you envision an economy, you also have to keep in mind that people should be healthy to be able to withstand a wave.
So I think the vaccination program has progressed a lot.
Yeah.
There is a provision of another 5,000 crores for next year for boosters or whatever the policy will be. So
Sure.
the vaccine budget will follow the vaccine policy. We have made an estimate without knowing what.
Many doctors were complaining about the fact that the health budget has not gone up substantially, which is a
It has
huge
gone up.
area of
It has
concern.
gone up, but
Not substantially.
that is because there's a lot of pandemic expenditure in this year's RE.
Okay.
So if you exclude for example, 22,500 crores was apportioned for just dealing with COVID in the current year.
Sure.
Now, if you take that out, there is actually a substantial increase next year.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey and Mr. Somanathan. Pleasure talking to you.
Same.
Thank you.